There we go. It works like a charm. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Here we go. I am so happy that we're just moving along swimmingly. I just want things to move smoothly. Really, really want to learn. Alright, here we go. Add rigid body components to objects. I guess this is for collision. Yes, this is for collision. Right now, the vehicle goes straight through the box. If we want it to be more realistic, we need to add physics. Here we go.
Our vehicle now speeds along at a normal rate instead of incredibly fast or incredibly slow. And now we want it so that we, instead of just driving straight through this box, actually can collide with it. In order to simulate physics in our world, we actually need to add something to both our obstacle and our vehicle. And we'll do that using our components. So our component system can add a lot of different properties that people regularly use. In this case, a property that people will commonly use for physics is a rigid body, which is a physics concept, and in this case allows us to interact with this truck here that we have as if it had real simulated physics on it. So now it's a solid object. You can see that on the rigid body component in our inspector. It has a mass, so we can actually make this heavier. We can use gravity or we cannot use gravity. So there's all of these different options. In fact, I think our inspector is getting a little bit too crowded, so you can actually click on the little arrows next to all of the component names, and it will compress down each of the different options. So that's certainly very handy if you have a lot of different components. So now we can see our rigid body component, which is great. And then on our obstacle, we can also go and with our obstacle selected in the inspector, we click add component. If we type in rigid body again, we can add another rigid body. So now our obstacle and our vehicle both have rigid bodies, which means they're both using physics, they both have mass, they both use gravity. So that's really helpful. And then one other important component to note in our list of components in our obstacle and our vehicle is actually these mesh colliders that we have on both of our objects. And our colliders are basically our ways of telling our simulated world that these objects can be collided with. So it knows that because there's a collider on this, when it runs into something like the ground or when it runs into something like our vehicle, it should do something like make it stop because we have a rigid body on it. So if we actually press play, you can see our vehicle collides with our crate, it goes flying off. If we were to turn any one of these things off, so for example, on our obstacle, if we turn off our mesh collider, our box actually just flies straight through the ground, and that's because our mesh collider is telling our game world that the box no longer collides with our road, so therefore it can just fly straight through because it's not supposed to collide. So really fun things that you can do, and just to kind of make our little driving game simulation a bit more realistic, we're going to increase the masses of these two objects just to make it a bit more fun, make it interesting. So we'll make our obstacle, our little crate, maybe about 20 kilograms or so. And then the mass of our vehicles, I don't know, maybe something like 1,000. So now this has even more weight behind it. So when it hits that box, we should see a slightly different effect happen. Yep, see? So took much longer for that crate to fly over the vehicle because it was much heavier. So, fun little things you can do to create better simulated worlds in your games using things like colliders to tell your objects to know when they've collided with something like our vehicle and our box, or even our box and our road. Using rigid bodies to be able to create physics on our objects so that way our obstacle actually has weight, our vehicle has weight. and we're using gravity, so it's actually being pushed down into the ground at all times. So, what you're going to do is on your vehicle, you're going to select it in your hierarchy, and you're going to go into the inspector on the right side, click Add Component, and you're going to add a rigid body. And then the same thing you'll do with your obstacle, select it in the hierarchy, go to the inspector, click Add Component, and then make sure you either search for or select the rigid body component out of the list. So you can do that either by going to Add Component, going to Physics, and then you can see all of the different options like the rigid body, or you can just type in rigid body, and there it is. Super easy. Now it's your turn.
Alright, let's find the rigid body and add it to the vehicle and the obstacle. Alright. Alright, we have the vehicle already done, so let's add the component. Let's take rigid. There's the rigid body. And done. Now let's add it to the obstacle. Click on it. Add component. It's already there. Boom. Rigid body, rigid body. And I believe the mass. Increase the mass of the vehicle. Alright, so. Oh, double check, make sure. Okay. Alright. So this is for this. I believe he said this was like 10 or 100. I think he said like 10. And for the vehicle, we make that 1,000. And that's done. Now we test. Maybe it was 100. Yeah, I think it was 100. So let's boom. Yeah, let's try 100. Okay, and boom. Okay, this boom. Okay. Alright, how interesting. Oh yeah, that 20. Oh my god, excuse my sniffles. Okay. So let's make it 50. I'm curious to see what it would be like at 50 and 1,000. So click on it. There we go. Let's make it 50. Alright. Now let's, oh sorry, let's click on anything else. And here we go. Again. What happened? Again. Not really giving. Alright, let's do it to 25. Alright, try it again. Alright, better. Alright, I'm happy with that. Alright, let's mark step as completed. Alright, two more, then we're done. Um, duplicate and position the obstacles. Last but not least, we should duplicate the obstacle and make the more treacherous for the vehicle. Let's see how.
We've got some physics in our scene now, and we've got collisions happening. So as our vehicle's driving the road, it runs into this box goes flying, and now we're going to make this road just a little bit more treacherous, make our game a bit more difficult for our player by adding some more boxes. Make sure you pay attention before you do this yourself. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to select the obstacle, and I'm just going to make this a little bit easier for myself. So I'm going to left click and drag the obstacle in our hierarchy and drag it all the way to the bottom of this list. So you see this little blue line underneath all of the other list of objects. And if we let go, now you can see our obstacles there. And now what I want to do is I need more boxes in this scene. So I'm going to select the obstacle in the hierarchy by clicking on it. And I'm actually just going to press the Control key and the D key at the same time. So if I Control D on our obstacle, it immediately duplicates our obstacle. And now we have another. And you can see if I hover my mouse over the scene and I press F to focus, it's directly on top of the other box. So that's not what we want. But we'll just move this one a little bit farther back. We'll try and get it to around 50 or so. I'm just going to estimate. Yeah, around there is good. 50.1, almost had it. Now we have a second obstacle, but we want to add more. So if I just keep duplicating and dragging, that'll take a long time. So I can actually do something to make this a bit faster. So if I select my first obstacle and I control click on my second obstacle, now if I control D, it creates two more obstacles. And in fact, I can move these back even further, just about, let's call it like there. That's good. We'll shift my perspective, so I'll actually click the little green Y in our scene view. Now we have a top-down view. And now I'm going to zoom out. So we're going to Alt and we're going to right click and drag it to the side all the way to the left so we zoom out even more. And now we can see maybe a hand tool might be useful for this. So I press Q, select my hand tool. There you go. So you can see more of the road now. Actually, it might help if I just turn. There you go. And then just zoom in a little bit. Perfect. Cool. Now we can see our road even better. Really good opportunity to test out your movement skills and see if you can navigate your scene. So now we have our two boxes. Now we're going to make another set. So now I'll select my first obstacle. And in fact, if I just hover over the last obstacle, I pressed Shift and left click at the same time. Now all four are highlighted. Now if I Control D to duplicate, I have four more obstacles. Now if I select my move tool, I can move all four obstacles down the line, somewhere like there. Cool. You can see this last obstacle, obstacle 7, is a little bit off the road, so we'll just delete that. So I'm just actually going to press the delete key on my keyboard, and it deletes it from the scene. So now we'll save really quick, and when I press play, you can see the vehicle drives, hits one of the boxes, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. You can see them tumbling down in the game view. So, up there the vehicle goes straight down. Oh no. Can we catch it? No, it's gone forever. Well, we know the physics works now, so that's great. And we hit all the obstacles, and we've made even more, so we've made things just a bit more difficult. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take your first obstacle, you're going to use Control D to duplicate it, move it down the road, just using the Z axis, this blue arrow on your move tool. And then you can actually select your first obstacle and control click on your second obstacle. And then when you Control D, it'll actually duplicate two more obstacles. So then you can move those down the line. And then you can actually just select your first obstacle and then shift click on the latest obstacle you made to select all 4 obstacles, and you can drag those all the way down the line. And then you can test your game out. Now it's your turn.
Okay. Alright. Click and drag obstacle to the bottom.